Well, well. Um, a big thing's already brewing, and the local elections haven't even taken place yet. Uh, we've obviously covered very recently the fact that Robert Jenrick is now pretty much the firm favourite. If you look at the Conservative home polls, we've talked about how many times those are like the absolute predictor of like who is going to win the next Conservative Party leader general election. They've been right pretty much most of the time. In fact, the vast majority of the time, especially in recent times as well. So, yeah, could be the case that in a year's time, maybe Jenrick is going to be the party leader. And as I've said before, why do a lot of these people, especially the pro-Jenrick people, think that Jenrick would somehow be any better than Kemi Badenoch? Because I guarantee you, if Jenrick had won, if Jenrick had Jenrick, if he had won, you would be in the exact same position right now with people saying, "God, we should have. If only we'd have gone for Badenoch. If only we had gone for Badenoch." Because Sam Coates from Sky News scored an absolute journalistic win. He has got audio recordings of Robert Jenrick of him basically saying that they need to unite the right and that they need to work to bring a coalition to bring reform and the Tories together. What has been coming up consistently? What has been coming up consistently in the past couple of months? It has been that phrase, unite the right. Because they know, especially in the UK, if that right-wing vote is split, they don't win an election. They cannot win an election at all. So we're going to dive into these comments that Jenrick has made. Obviously, the reaction now, today, this morning, is Kemi Badenoch is now under pressure to sack Jenrick for making those comments. Whether she will or not, who knows? It could be the case by the time this video goes out, he's got the sack. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. But Jenrick has made a lot of people very upset. Obviously, the Lib Dems and Labour have absolutely capitalised on this, saying, well, the time of the next election, you could be voting for Conservatives, but in fact getting Nigel Farage. There's so much to actually capitalise on this. With I think the Lib Dems coming out and saying, you see, the Tories are willing to do dirty deals behind the scenes to sort of win power and put Nigel Farage, into power. So there's a ton of stuff, a ton of ramifications going to probably come from this. Will she sack Jenrick? Well, she can't. She can't sack Jenrick at all. I would say now he's untouchable. He's untouchable now. And should never have put him in shadow cabinet. Never have put him in the shadow cabinet. I do not see why on earth Kemi Badenoch put him in the shadow cabinet. But anyway, we're going to go over these comments because I think they're worth going over, because there is going to be a lot of talk about this probably in the next coming days, but we'll see. We'll see. So before we do get into this, please remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button down below. There's the Patreon page, there's the Buy Me Coffee link, there's the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button down below as well. So anyway, go check those out down below. Anyway, let's crack on into this, shall we? Because oh boy, this is going to be interesting. So this comes from The Guardian reporting about this. Robert Jenrick now vows to bring coalition together to prevent Tory reform fight. So Jenrick has told a private meeting he will now try to ensure that the Tories and reform do not compete against each other at the next election, saying to do so would hand a second term to Keir Starmer. The leaked comments obtained by Sky News show that the Shadow Justice Secretary said that he would bring this coalition together one way or another. One way or another, from a guy who potentially in a year's time could be the Tory leader. Anyway, it continues. Though now sources close to Jenrick now deny this meant a pact with the party, when he said bring this coalition together one way or another. The party said he was only referring to voters. I'm sure he was. Anyway, comments now from the former Conservative leadership contender, who was seen as a potential replacement for, of course, Kemi Badenoch for the party's fortunes not improve, are at least the clearest sign yet that the Tories do not believe they can win the next election while Reform remains an independent political force. This has been talked about before, possibilities of mergers, etc., all this stuff. At the moment, these types of talks are only going to increase. And I guarantee you, after May the 1st, after we see all that stuff, we're going to see a heck of a lot more talks about these increase as well. So speaking at the UCL Conservative Society dinner in late March, he said that Nigel Farage's reform was, quote, doing well in the polls. And my worry is that they become kind of a permanent or semi-permanent fixture on the British political scene. And if that is the case, and I say I am trying to do everything I can to stop that being the case, then life becomes a lot harder for us because the right is not united. And then you head towards the general election, where the nightmare scenario is that Starmer sails through the middle as a result of the two parties being disunified. Again, disunified. So I would say from his comments there, he is not talking about voters. He is talking about parties, about mergers on that one. But he continued to say, I don't know about you, but I am not prepared for that to happen. I want the fight to be united. So then what? Coalition? Is that what he is suggesting? That, yeah, they stand as two individual parties at the next election, but intend to sort of form a coalition at the next general election? Once again, massively facilitating the need for us to really get out and vote tactically again to stop that from happening, you know? And so on, one way or another, I am now determined to do that and bring this coalition together to make sure we are now united now as a nation as well. A source close to Jenrick told these comments were not advocating for any kind of formal pact or merger. Seemed to be me for right there, to be honest. If you take that as Jenrick at his word, he absolutely is referring to political parties and the political parties, united, bringing the coalition together, stop the result of the two parties being disunited. He's not referring to voters there. That is talk of an electoral pact of some sort of merger. So Rob's comments are, of course, about voters, not parties. Doesn't seem to be about voters to me. He is clear that we have to put Reform out of business and make the Conservatives now the natural home for all those in real light. Rebuilding the coalition of voters that we had in 2019 and can have again. You're not going to do that. You're not, this whole thing of like coalition of voters that you built in 2019, you cannot do that again. That was like a once in a moment thing, because what brought all those coalition of voters together, it was Brexit. It wasn't anything else. Also, Robert Jenrick is also not Boris Johnson. Let us be very painfully clear on that. But he is also under no illusions how difficult that is. We have to prove over time how we've changed and can be trusted again, the source said. Well, considering the fact that you're already trying to say, oh no, Rob's not talking about parties, he's talking about voters. Well, to me, if you read that is like more about parties. We don't want to be fighting against each other. We want to be working with each other. Kind of strange when he says stuff about that, isn't it? Anyway, Farage has, of course, previously ruled out any deal with the Conservatives, even at local level, such as council coalitions, saying that the Tories broke Britain nationally over for 14 years, and their councils now continue to break local communities with the highest taxes ever and worst services. Cabinet Office Minister Ellie Reeves said that Kemi Badenoch now needs to urgently come clean as to whether she actually backs her shadow Justice Secretary in doing grubby deals with reform behind the electorate's back, or if she will now rule it out. If she disagrees with Jenrick, how can her leadership have any credibility whilst he remains in her shadow cabinet? Knowing full well that if you put pressure on her and he does that and he goes to the backbenchers, that's going to make a lot of people very upset, and there is going to be a great turmoil break loose, and oh boy, what a turmoil that will be. Anyway, we know that, of course, Kemi Badenoch has now opened the door to deals with reform at a local level. Again, she suggested that reform and the Tories unite at a local level to keep out Labour or the Lib Dems or any other party. If you're willing to work together at a local level, why not at a national level to form, a coalition government? So Labour has, of course, categorically ruled out, of course, right now. Robert Jenrick has now let the cat out of the bag. Between the Tories now, who decimated the NHS, and Reform, who want to make people now pay for routine treatments. It is a recipe for chaos. Elections are, of course, due to be held in more than over 20 different councils in England next week. Reform is hoping to make very significant gains. The Conservatives are expected to take very heavy losses because these seats were last contested in 2021 during the COVID-19 vaccine bounce, when Boris Johnson's government was at its height of popularity. Remember, they are defending over 940 seats. Of course, they're going to take very heavy losses. Of course, Reform are going to have some wins. Question is, how much? What, victories are they going to have? Polling does, of course, suggest that several councils are likely to end up in no overall control on May the 1st. More than, of course, 60 of course current Reform's current councils and candidates are defectors from the Conservative Party. Again, we keep on bringing this up time and time again. Reform has even selected ex-Conservatives and is now as candidates in its Runcorn and Hesley by-election, which is also taking place on the 1st of May. While the party's mayoral candidate for Greater Lancashire is, of course, the former Tory MP Andrea Jenkins. Gee, all these ex-Conservatives going over to Reform. Why? Because they going on the hard right path they want to push the Conservative Party into doing. And as we keep on saying, there is this faction in the Conservative Party that is not that hard right. They are fundamentally centrists or rights-leaning centrists. They don't want to go in that hard right direction. That is why there's been this big split constantly over that. I do apologise for that. Anyway, the Liberal Democrats obviously said that Badenoch should sack Jenrick for these comments to the party's deputy leader. Daisy Cooper said the cat is now out of the bag. Senior Conservatives are now plotting a very grubby election deal with Nigel Farage. Kemi Badenoch should sack Jenrick now if she's serious about any ruling out any Pact with Reform. Anything less now, and she's either A, too weak to sack him, or she agrees. It is little wonder that now former Conservative voters, appalled by the party. Anyway, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I hope you can. But yeah, wasn't expecting works to start, but there you go. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think down below, if you can hear me over this. But we'll see you all next time.